Hello, and thanks for joining us today. This is Anthony Parent of IRSMedic, and we are going to have a really fun episode today. We have a fantastic guest today, John Allen, of Coming Home with John Allen. And John Keith and I were on his podcast last week. That was fantastic. And now today, John can relax and leave all the technical frustrations to yours truly as we get into this topic and really what we're going to talk about today. And here's my intro, and just bear with me a little bit because I think I can finally express some of the frustrations I've had on this channel trying to build some interest into this awful, awful taxation that we all suffer under. And, here's where we're going to start is that, starting with this mythology and something that I used to believe myself, that Americans won World War II and we saved the planet. And thank God we got involved because, boy, everything was really messed up, but we won. We dropped nuclear weapons, and thank goodness we did that. We firebombed Dresden, and thank God we did that. We destroyed the planet, and then in its wake, though, we put the vision of American dominance, and that's why we are Americans, and we have the most powerful country in the world, and because of that, we have the greatest opportunity in the world, and hey, that's our birthright as Americans. We are the winners, aren't we? The world as Americans, John, right? We're truly our oyster, but
absolutely.
But there's something that happens. There's a record scratch. The house lights come on, the music stops, and the party is over. And now, who's this party pooper we're talking about? Well, if you live overseas, you know the answer. It is the U.S. tax system, and along with other parts of the tax code like Title 31, and in particular with regards to the U.S. tax system, it is citizenship-based taxation, this little nasty thing that no one else in the world, no other countries in the world do. Rather, this is the American exceptionalism about imposing taxation on Americans no matter where they are, and actually then going a little bit further and making that taxation much more punitive if you have overseas. Now, how bad can it get? Well, this channel, you've seen guests on our channel. You've seen guests on our channel that say we have been forced to give up our American citizenship if they wish to pursue their opportunities overseas. One of our guests on the channel, the great John Richardson, knows and understands if you are an expat. One of his quotes is, all roads lead to renunciation. It is something that happens. So how could it be proven to be any worse than that? How could you possibly prove, if this is not the worst tax system in the world, then what would the worst one look like? How could it be any worse that your tax system makes people want to give up citizenship to the greatest country in the world that has all these benefits? How could that possibly be? So now, as I've been confronted with the reality of the U.S. tax system for the last 20 years, things are really different now, actually, because it's so awful, because the U.S. tax system is so utterly awful, and because it can't reflect the will of the American people in any sort of way. I am now left to wonder who actually won World War II, and is America really that great of the country? How can it be? How can it be when we have the worst tax system by far in a country, by the way, that was founded allegedly because of tax on tea? Well, everything's taxed every which way you look. And not only that, the reporting requirements and reporting penalties to confiscate you, and the uncertainty, the entire PSYOP, that is the IRS, everything you hate about it when you're in the US, it's only magnified when you're going overseas, right? And so now, to help us really put some homespun wisdom to this, to really help us understand this issue, we have a fantastic guest. We have a fantastic guest, John Allen of Coming Home with John Allen. John Allen, I want to thank you to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. You are a U.S. expat in Norway, and we were on your podcast. I'll get that up. I put the link to your podcast in the super chat, everyone, so you can check that out. You can check out the podcast we were on. John Allen, welcome so much. And I hope you don't mind my lengthy introduction, but this is just a really important subject that we're talking about. And this is what I want to get out from you. John Allen, why Norway and what's going on there? So,
Well, thank you so much for inviting me on to your show. This is going to be fun. I like what you guys do. It's very informative. It's a little sad sometimes because of that information that we get. It's a little stressful sometimes because of that information that we get, but we need that information. We need to be able to orient ourselves to the reality of being Americans living abroad and being subjected to this punitive tax code pushed out by the United States government and specifically the IRS. So thank you guys for doing the work that you do, and it's an honor for me to be here. Why Norway? Well, I have this vicious little woman who is my wife. She is, now, when people think of Norwegian women or Scandinavian women, they think of like a 6-foot tall blonde. My wife, I believe, is the shortest Norwegian in existence. She's just a hair over 5 foot, but she's tough as nails. I tell people when I met her on a Saturday night and I woke up the following Sunday in Norway. That's how quick everything happened.
Oh, so I didn't know it was love. Oh,
yes,
so,
it was love. And I tease because I love. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. We met in 1998, I believe it was. We got married in 2001. We lived for almost 2 years in the Chicago suburbs before moving to Norway. And here we are, 22 years later.
So now you met your wife in Chicago?
Yeah, I did. I am very good friends with, I'm a power lifter, and I'm very good friends with one of they call him the Michael Jordan.
What do you, I'm sorry, what do you deadlift? I got to ask.
My deadlift is 325 kilos, but that's not my best lift. My best lift is 335.5 kilos. That's my squat. That's like
I thought you were going to say pounds. I'm like, okay,
no, that's like
then you said kilos. Like, oh no.
No, that's like 774 pounds, I believe. My goal before I retire is to get 800 pounds even. So that is actually the Norwegian all-time Norwegian record for squat. And I did that when the year that I turned 50. I'm 55 now. So we could have another podcast.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no,
we could have another podcast about longevity and how to reverse the aging process. Like I said, I'm 55 and I'm looking to squat 800 pounds.
Oh my God!
Wow. So if there's a good thing about being in Norway, it's the fresh air. I think it puts a little bit of strength in a guy.
All right, so I mean, this is the thing, and so here's the thing: you're hey, you're from Chicago. You're not thinking that worldwide taxation could ever be an issue. You're not even thinking Norway's even on your, Norway's not even a consideration until one day, right? It's not even like, what's Norway? What? Oh, yes, Norway. Yes.
Well,
zero, you're right. You went from 0% to 100% in a few days, really.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, my life has been all about changes. I never thought I would end up living in Chicago. I'm actually from Ohio. I'm a country boy from rural Ohio, and then all of a sudden here I am in Chicago, and then all of a sudden here I am in Norway. So the changes, and I never, taxes was just something I did every year. You just file taxes, but it's so different being an American citizen while living in Norway. Now all of a sudden I see, I feel, I experience the punitive side of that tax code that everyone back home just takes for granted. Yeah. So if there are average citizens walking around in the United States that, they hear the stories we tell and they almost don't believe it, I kind of get that. Yeah. I kind of get that. Unfortunately, there's not enough people like you guys. There's not enough podcasts like IRSMedic. And to a certain degree, to my podcast, that put the word out there so that our beloved fellow citizens who are back home understand what we're going through. And we don't want a pity party. We want an orientation in reality of the situation, which is that the tax code is punitive for those of us who are living overseas. The horror stories of, I'm okay. I'm a flexible guy. I'm a U.S. Marine, so I can handle the adversity. But the horror stories that some of my friends and acquaintances, other Americans living in Norway, can tell and have told about what they are going through because of that punitive tax code. Everything from the enormous cost of having to file taxes to the misinformation, disinformation, lack of representation, misunderstanding that puts their entire lives into a tailspin. I'm talking people who can't get a bank in Norway because there are some Norwegian banks who are terrified of punitive measures from the United States government if they make a mistake.
That's right. Now, John, I want to go back though to when you met your wife. I want to go back. Where were you? What were you doing?
Okay, yeah. I kind of started getting into
because I want to talk more about the good things a little bit here.
Yeah,
you got to sprinkle
I'm
those
friends
in, right?
I'm friends with a gentleman named Ed Cohen. He's considered the Michael Jordan of powerlifting. He's retired now.
Okay.
But he and I got to know each other, and we used to train together at Quad's Gym in Calumet City, right outside of Chicago. Now, Ed had, when I met him, a girlfriend from Norway by the name of Hege. That's a very Norwegian name, Hege. And Hege, after a few months, came to Chicago to live with Ed, and they ended up getting married. Well, Hege and I became good friends. I consider her a sister, not just a friend. And Hege was always talking about, you've got to meet my friend back in Norway. You guys would be a perfect couple. And I was just like, yeah, right. I wasn't interested. I was in another relationship at that time. But for a couple of years, Hege kept telling me about her friend, and I need to meet her. And it finally happened that I was finished with my first marriage, and Hege told me, yeah, my friend is actually coming now. She's going to come and visit. You need to meet her. And I was still kind of like, yeah, whatever. So me and Hege were in the gym training, working out, and in comes her friend to visit. And Hege shouts out across the gym in Norwegian. She says, "Hey, Snuppa." Hi means like hello, and Snuppa, Snuppa, means like baby or sweetheart. Like a teasing nickname. So she says, "Hi, Snuppa." So this lovely strawberry blonde, tiny little woman walks all the way in, gives Hege a hug, and then turns to me. And I said, "Hi, Snoopy. Nice to meet you. My name's John." So I knew that Hege didn't say Snoopy. I heard her very clearly that she said Snoopa, but I didn't know what it meant. And to just be silly and foolish, I called her Snoopy. I call my wife Snoop. That is what I call my wife these days. You will never hear me use her Christian name. Her name is Snoopy.
Oh my!
Thank you for that. I was always wondering why you called her Snoopy. So now we know.
You probably see.
Now you know what, and I think it's a great time to I haven't even introduced Keith Redmond to the show yet. So Keith, so much for joining us today. Keith is really responsible, I think, for bringing us all together here. So Keith, thanks so much for joining us. Did you know this story about Snoopy? I didn't know about this.
No. I knew that was your term of endearment for your lovely wife, but I didn't know the etymology, if you will.
And those of you joining, Keith runs a Facebook group, and he's a consulate to and advocate to Americans overseas, and so he's really got a finger on pulse. And he deals with people like John Allen all the time. And this is what I really say. This is what's what's wonderful about being in this area of tax law, is that my clients overseas are really, really incredible. And you have very high functioning people, and John, I think you and I have probably more in common. As I'm looking at your guitars and your lifting, I'm like, yeah, we probably have a little more in common. And I think your longevity thing, we're probably very similar on that as well. And that's what's so fun. So you find these really high functioning people around the world, and Keith, you being one of them too. Wouldn't you say that that's your experience, that U.S. expats who are, and I'm not just talking about the retirees, but the U.S. expats like John Allen, the entrepreneurs, U.S. entrepreneurs overseas, in my mind, are really some of the most fun, most adaptable, most creative, and can overcome things. And I think also see the world in the world perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think. My thing is, aside from the taxation issue, because the U.S. is such a big country and a bit isolated, geographically speaking, is that if any American has an opportunity in their lifetime to live for a while outside the United States, it changes everything. It changes the perspective on the U.S. and on the world. And I know it has for me, looking at the pluses and the minuses and
Yes.
everything in between. And that the US is no different than any other country, with the exception of this terrible taxation situation that Americans overseas face.
Yeah.
But
So,
I do.
yep.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Go ahead.
All right, John Allen.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, you mentioned a few traits that are common among American entrepreneurs who live overseas. And, you find those traits to a certain degree, to a large degree, among entrepreneurs who are home in the United States. But there is something, if I can pat myself and other expats on the back a little, there is something daring, something adventurous, something a little tougher among those of us who actually pick up and then replant ourselves in a new nation. I can speak for myself and say that was not it was, I kind of joke about everything happening so quick, but with me moving to Norway, but it did happen very quick. I had an excellent career as a police officer. I was a narcotics detective, juvenile officer. I did a lot of homicide investigations, and it was an excellent career. I really enjoyed it. But very briefly, what happened was we were investigating without getting into details about the case, it was a rather large case against a very large criminal organization, and they found out where Snoopy and I lived. And at that time, there was a residency requirement for the police department. And I tried to get the department to release me from that residency requirement so that we could safely move. And when I say safely, I say that because they literally paid us a visit like 11:30 at night.
Oh God.
If a neighbor hadn't called us on the phone to tell us that she saw 3 guys climbing the fence over into our backyard, it probably would have ended differently than it did. Fast forward to the following morning, Snoopy went to work, and like 15, 20 guys from this gang showed up at her job. That very same evening, I put Snoopy in the car and drove her up to some friends in Minnesota. I came back, I worked the case, pretty much finished the case, and still did not get any support that I needed, namely being released from the residency requirement. And I quit and dropped everything and moved to Norway. That's the story.
All right.
It's
Well,
the full story of me coming to Norway.
Oh my God. Well, I actually don't, that could be probably the best segue that we could have for what I want to talk about next, because what you're talking about is like, okay, there's a database of information with your information on it, John Allen. And if bad people get that database, what happens? Bad things. And here you are. And I would not, that is, when you're going after, and that's the problem, when you're going after really nasty people, they don't play around. And so this is sort of what I'm saying, is that we have a government here, and that collects massive amounts of data on people who are U.S. persons, and people who aren't. And I want to introduce our other guest today, John Richardson. He's joining us remotely. He usually does share his lovely countenance with us, but today he's moving about. John Richardson, this is kind of what I'm thinking of, is that here we have a situation where the U.S. government is conducting these massive sort of intelligence raids on foreign financial institutions to create these databases. Now, I don't know if you know this, John, but there was a hack of all the tax records. About 10 billion tax records were hacked. I checked, in my social security number, my information's out. So anyone who wants to find me, I guess you can get that list. You can find my address. You can find my social security number. You can find me, whatever it is. I don't think I have that many enemies, and I'm not necessarily worried about it. But John, I mean, do you see the massive, and this is sort of the additional problem. Why is the government collecting this information? It's just creating a database for the really mean and nasty who know how to get things, to know how to make people in prison kill themselves. That's interesting. So, John, do you see where we're going here?
No, absolutely. There's no doubt that this is a problem, and that's one of the reasons why Europe has the GDPR, right?
Yeah, yeah. By the way, and this is what's fascinating. Europe has a GDPR, and I was just talking with one of our firm's attorneys in Switzerland, Sandra Esri, sorry. And she is a privacy attorney in Switzerland, a privacy practitioner. And we just had an episode a couple of weeks ago going over all the great protections of GDPR, some of the problems, but all the great protections about what is there. And as I'm going through that, and if you go through the video, I'm just like, my ears are steaming because how completely meaningless GDPR truly is to the greatest threat Europeans face. The greatest threat Europeans face is probably what they've always faced, the United States of America. And that's what we have, is that this is the thing that I wish more Europeans understood. The way that the FATCA mechanism works is that every financial institution must exercise due diligence to uncover suspected Americans, so that you might actually not be American and your information could be released to America. You might not be at all. But now there's a database, and especially this is the thing when you're, look, I've had a lot of clients who had some interesting pasts, and a lot of them want to have that low profile because of the things that can come back to. But here we are. You did, John Allen, you served the public, and you did the right thing. And what was your reward for this? What was your reward for being a great investigative officer? What was your reward, John Allen?
Well, my reward was, ultimately the very people that I thought I would get the most support from turned their backs on me, did not give me that support, expected me to just deal with it. It broke my heart, to be honest. And there may be some people listening that are kind of hard-hearted, cold-hearted, and they're thinking, oh, poor you. Well, yeah, poor me. We're talking about a career. We're talking about a life of service that I was well into. And it was all just uprooted and cast aside, and it totally turned my life around. Now, let me say, mostly because I don't want my wife to stab me in my sleep, it's beautiful here in Norway and life is good. However, there are some bad things that have come about because of this punitive nature of the American tax system. And there's definitely, that period of trauma where I was uprooted from my job and coming to a foreign country. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything about it other than what my wife had told me. So
what you're saying is, now I'm hearing a common theme, because I know many Americans who moved to Europe, and some renounced. And one of the things that what you're saying reminds me of a story, and I have this episode too, so I'm not breaching any confidences because this is public episode. My interview with Ryan Sokash. He's a YouTube star in Poland, media star. He's kind of my most famous friend, and it's a blast walking around Poland with him because people stop and hug us. It's great. I advise everyone to have one famous friend. It's really great. He was telling me his story because he actually grew up in Chicago. And he was telling his story about why his heart was broken by the United States of America. And in this video, he explains how the education system was just horrible to him and how he was just left dangling out there. He had a single mom, but mom wasn't getting any support from the school, and they didn't know what to do with Ryan. So, he just had an incredibly abusive, experience. And so, hey, this idea of moving to Poland, he's never really been there, but he's like, oh, man, maybe that's a better place to go. And I think that maybe that, do you think that could have had something to do with why, hey, look, I'm okay going to Norway because the folks here don't necessarily have my back. Anything?
I definitely had that feeling that my immediate superiors did not have my back, and that hurt because before I was a police officer, I was a United States Marine, active duty. So that whole thing about teamwork, about trusting the people above you, below you, beside you, and around you, that trust, you literally put your life in their hands. That meant something to me. It still does, but it meant something to me. And then to have that circle of trust broken in that situation, like I say, it hurt. It broke my heart. It really did. It was a genuinely traumatic experience. But being the person that I was at the time and still am today, but having the background, the support and great family support from my mother, and at that time my grandmother and my auntie, and my background as a U.S. Marine, and just having common sense, I realized that, okay, now it's time to buckle down and tackle this new situation in Norway. And I got to work on that almost as soon as I landed here, by learning the language, finding a job very quickly, and things like that. And I start living my life here. And again, I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not an expert on tax law. So I'm just living my life in Norway, not thinking about American taxes, filing taxes. I didn't think about that for years.
Now,
a decade, more than a decade.
And let's get some context. And I don't want to go dig too deep into it, but how much of your time do you think you spend worrying about the U.S. tax code?
Zero.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Zero before, now I spend time worrying about it. But in my day-to-day life before, say 6-8 years ago, I never gave it a thought. It had nothing to do with my life. I had no income in the States. I had no assets in the States. So why would I think of filing taxes for the States? You know what I mean? I considered myself totally uprooted. Of course, still an American citizen, still with a passport, but I considered myself totally uprooted from all things financial in the United States. And I'm starting this new life with all of the financial responsibilities here in Norway. That's the way I was living my life for almost 2 decades here in Norway, without a thought of the U.S. tax system. But, and I can't remember, but I can't remember exactly, Keith, when I saw your group on Facebook, but that is when I was like, oh my gosh, taxes? Is this an issue? And it scared, can I curse on this show? It scared the shit out of me.
There you go. That's allowed.
It scared the living daylights out of me when I started to see, because of course I saw your group, and then I started doing a little research, and I'm like, wow, there's people here in Norway getting in trouble. And I put that in air quotes, getting in trouble for not filing their American taxes. Some of them have been here for a year or two, some of them for decades.
How are they getting into trouble?
Well, again, so I put that in air quotes. Now, that trouble manifests itself in several ways. The way that I think is most significant is that they get scared. They get scared to death. They are afraid that they have now, upon gaining knowledge that they supposedly should be filing taxes in the States, or let's say according to the IRS, they should be filing taxes in the States. Now they think that there's some sort of felon. Now they think that if they cross back into the United States to visit their mother, that they're going to be arrested. Now they're afraid that when they go to the embassy to renew their passport, that's not going to happen. Now they are afraid that they're going to be arbitrarily void of a certain amount of rights as American citizens.
Yes.
That hurts. That is heavy. That's a burden that if you're never in that, well, if you're never in that situation, you'll never understand it. I can just tell people what that feels like, but it's horrible. Absolutely horrible. So that is the trouble that can manifest itself. Another sign of trouble among Americans in Norway is some of us, we get here, we of course need a bank here in Norway. We walk into a local bank and they say, no, we can't do business with you because you're an American citizen. And some people start to think, well, I thought we saved you guys in World War II. Why can't I have a bank here?
Yeah, right. Yeah, huh?
Thank you very much.
Well, and I think this might be an interesting place to go because I want to do just a little bit of a history lesson because I see that we have some new viewers here today, might not have been on the channel before. So we want to do a little bit of a history lesson with you, and just so you can understand, what the truth is and how we ended up here. And it's just sort of this question, and this is sort of the book I want to write. This is what I want to get to, but we could probably answer it pretty quickly because we have one of the top experts here on the podcast. Is really this is, look, we're taught this mythology that hey, the Revolutionary War was to end a 2% tariff on tea. And hey, thank God we won that because now we were able to get a land of liberty. And we're like, whoa, wait a second, what happened here? Wait. Can we go back to that 2% tax on tea? I'd really love to go back to. I'll pay a tax on newspapers too. Really, we'll pay that now. But can we go back to that? Because how is this possible that we're a country that was formed on the rights of the principal rights, the Magna Carta, constitutional liberty, British concept of liberty. That's what we're founded on, and yet we have this. And I want to turn it to John Richardson and ask him this question. John. What did George Washington fight for? Did George Washington fight because he was against taxation?
Well, we certainly don't know, but clearly, okay, the victors write the history. What the United States has evolved into today is infinitely worse than anything that the British were even accused.
Yes.
I mean, so if you believe the history, the complaint of the colonists was, well, British taxation of their own colonies.
Right.
Of course, America today is taxing not their own colonies, but other sovereign countries under the guise of, those other sovereign countries are somehow harboring escaped Americans.
And part of what, and that's exactly right, John. And part of what of the issue is people, the history is written by the victors, and that we're left and we're told that, oh yeah, thank God for these founding fathers, thank God for the U.S. Constitution. Thank God for the U.S. Constitution, because where would we be without it? We'd have a government totally out of control that would say that anything is taxable and that we can hand our monetary supply off to private bankers. That's fine. There's no problem with that, because thank God we have this Constitution, right? Because it's protecting us from this tyranny, right? But we're stuck with this situation where people are forced to renounce their U.S. citizenship if they dare take an opportunity overseas. So we have a conflict, and so what explains it? And the answer is this: the answer is history is written by the victors. The federal government has won every battle over the American people it has ever waged. And really, what you need to understand about the Revolutionary War was that, because you brought it up, John. This is exactly what happens when you do the dirty work for the United States of America. They stab you in the back, and it is demonstrated so easily and so quickly, so succinctly. And the very first law ever passed by this country, signed into law by George Washington, something he advocated for, something his man Alexander Hamilton told him to do. Their first law passed in this country was a ruinous tax that was intended to punish rural areas of the country. It was a tax on liquor, and it was a very heavy tax on liquor. Now, your first response is like, "Hey, look, everyone's paying it, right, fairly." Well, no, that's true. If you're a user of it, it's already been taxed. But we're out west, where whiskey is the backbone of the economy. I mean, seriously, they made so much whiskey, they were able to get the cost of a gallon of whiskey down to about $6 in today's money. Okay, so what this tax did is it took a $6 gallon of whiskey and it made it $9. And it was their currency. That's really what it is. And so they're just growing in people's pocket, basically taking out half of their stuff. Now, to enforce this law, there were revenuers staged in Pennsylvania, and they went into people's houses. That Fourth Amendment was shredded immediately disregarded. When people rebelled, George Washington raised 10,000 troops from Maryland and invaded Pennsylvania. And John, this is what I'm saying, is that what they did, because the people responsible for George Washington coming into power were people who fought, died, and sacrificed against their fight against the British. So after Washington tricked them into sacrificing their law, he turned on them. He stabbed them in the back. Some of the very people who made his victory possible, he came and fought them with his ruinous taxation. And that was it. George Washington had his way. And now, because all of his friends are getting the money of other people, he's able to write the history. George Washington was actually the greatest disaster, or one of the greatest disasters this country ever has. And this is where I suggest for those of you who are wondering what I'm saying, this is all well documented, well researched. It's in the seminal book, For Good and for Evil, The Impact on Taxes in the Course of Civilization. And this is the thing. This is the most important book every American can read to truly understand what we're dealing with. This country, look, the U.S. Constitution was merely a sales pitch. It was a sales pitch, and the anti-federalists were 100% right. It wasn't needed. George Washington himself formed a silent coup with his Freemason buddies to perform a coup d'etat on the Articles of Confederation that had one fatal flaw. It didn't allow the graft the U.S. Constitution does. This is exactly what's going on from the onset, John Allen, from the onset. We have a country that stabs people in the back, and I think you're getting it. Did you not get it? You got it in your service. You got it in your public service of doing a truly dirty job.
Yeah.
And now you're getting it in Norway.
Yeah, it's quite unfair, and that word "unfair" is a word that a lot of people just kind of brush it away when it doesn't apply to them, but. I ask people back home to just kind of open their minds and their hearts a little bit and think this through. I would consider myself a successful man. There's a lot of us over here in Norway who are successful, quite successful, but we're not fat cat billionaires.
Yeah.
So, and I've dealt with a lot of lawyers, but I'm not a lawyer myself, but I'm also kind of smart. So I can read the tax code and, FATCA and some of these other things that are in there that are punitive towards us. It seems to me as if these things are written to go after those fat cat billionaires who maybe move overseas to hide some money. Now, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but I'm just saying that's what it seems to be to me. But we are just regular Americans who are getting caught up in this. I know there are some of us here in Norway who would love to go back or maybe cross-pollinate our businesses between and that's not a problem from the Norwegian side, but it's a huge problem from the American side. Yeah. Based upon the current demands that the United States government places upon us through the IRS and the tax code. It's ugly. Why? Why are they doing this to us? It's punitive with no reason. I understand punitive measures where warranted, but where is the warrant for these punitive measures against people like myself? Just an average American citizen doing the best they can in life and business and their regular work life, maybe not even business, just a regular 9-to-5 job. And there is a punitive measure that affects us every single day. Like I said, I was here for years and never thought of it, of these things. But when I became aware that this is an issue, this is a problem, it's a load that has to be carried now for the rest of my days here in Norway.
Yeah.
And why is that? There's something that's wrong with that.
That's right. Yeah, Keith, you're. I think you're going to echo something there. You're right. There is something incredible. I mean, here's the thing: incredibly wrong. That not just incredibly wrong. No, I mean incredibly wrong. So Keith, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may add, just another thing here, just a different to add to it, John Allen, is that even if you are a quote unquote fat cat billionaire in Norway with no ties to the United States, the U.S. has no claim, should have no claim to that money from a tax
Amen.
situation. So it doesn't matter
Amen.
whether you are that English teacher who's barely scraping by, or you happen to be that successful entrepreneur who has made millions of dollars. If you have no ties to the United States should not have any claim to that money, full stop.
Yeah. I'm of a mind to agree with that 100%. I'm of a mind that says that if you have no financial ties to the United States, whether you are a 9-to-5 worker or one of those fat cat billionaires, the United States should have nothing to do with your money. So why do we have this situation? I challenge anybody in the IRS or in Congress or in the White House to explain this in a way that sounds reasonable and fair to the average American, whether that American is overseas or back home in the United States.
Well said. Well said. Well said, John Allen. And now this is kind of where I want to get to on this here. Our next, how do I get into this subject here? So would you, I guess this is my question for you. Have you thought about renouncing, and what's stopping you?
I have thought about renouncing. I've also thought about possibly taking up dual citizenship, get Norwegian citizenship, if there was some sort of protection, in that. Now, I haven't renounced yet because I don't like to use the word patriot because that gets thrown around by some people who, frankly, I don't feel are patriots, but I am a patriot. I love the United States. And I think that's reflective in the service that I gave both as a United States Marine active duty and as a police officer. There would be something that would not ruin, but not destroy, but it would shake up my very identity if I were to renounce. I know it can be expensive to renounce, but I don't care about that, about the price of that. So that's not what's keeping me from doing it. It's an identity issue. I'm finding myself at a loss for words, but this is what happens every time I think about it or every time I talk about it. I'm at a loss for words because it's a sad and strange thing to have to evaluate.
Right?
Why? Yeah, it's terrible that you have to even entertain it.
It's like debating whether or not you should amputate an arm. Like, I don't know.
Here's some words.
Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know.
Here's some words I can put on it. In order for me to live the best life that I can, to do the business, to grow the business that I want to do and grow, to do the service that I want to do, and to take care of my family by giving them the opportunities that I want to give them, both socially and financially. And we're talking about generational wealth. Why should I, in order to do all of that, why should I have to even think about renouncing my citizenship in order to make that process smoother? Why would the land of the free, why would my United States of America make it such that I can't do those things without being severely punished?
Severely. No, that's exactly right. Hey, by the way, on that, I just want Cindy has a question here. Thank you for joining us today, Cindy. She's lived in Norway and she hasn't gotten experience of bank account refusing her, and she just wanted which banks are refusing you, which ones have. Okay. If you go back and listen when we're done here, go back. I didn't say that I was refused when I wanted to get a bank account. I came here in 2002 and things were very different then. If we go back to just the process of me emigrating to Norway, there was not a lot of paperwork to do. We literally went to the police station, the local police station, the day after I got here. I
I showed them we didn't even need an appointment. I showed them my passport. My wife was with me. My wife said, yes, we are married. Here's our marriage license, both from Norway and the United States. We're married. And here's proof that my wife says, this is proof that I have a job, so I can take care of my husband until he finds a job. And that was pretty much it. They gave me some strange stamp in my American passport and said, come back in a year to renew your residency.
Okay.
It's not like that these days. That very same day, after being at the police station to get that stamp in my passport, which gave me residency in Norway for 1 year, that same day we went to a local bank. And for Cindy, this is DNB Bank. It's the biggest bank in Norway. I walked in and said, I'm an American citizen. I need to open a bank account. Sure, no problem, the lady said. She took a copy of my passport, and in about 10 minutes, I had a bank account. And I've been with DNB ever since. Now, that's me in 2002.
Right, that's before FATCA.
Exactly. So there's the answer. There's your answer, Cindy. People who have come after FATCA, they are the ones that are experiencing not being able to get a bank, not being able to get a mortgage, a loan for a home in conjunction with their Norwegian spouse. They are the ones who, and I'm sure, Cindy, you probably have gotten a phone call, email, text from your bank. I don't know what bank you use here in Norway, but I bet they've reached out to you and said, hey, are you an American citizen? And if so, we need your social security number.
Yeah, Sydney. And if you do know of banks that don't give U.S. expats a hard time, please share them in the comments.
Because we need to know.
Yeah, we need to know. So, hey, look, we all have to share information that we have. So.
But again, so I have not had any issues with that because I came here at a time when things were different, and I have an excellent relationship with my bank, and I don't want to get myself or anyone else in trouble, but some things that other Americans in Norway have suffered with through their banks, I haven't had to.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. We're going to change subjects very quickly. So to hear you, really the hang up from renunciation from you is that identity concept.
It's an identity thing.
I think, and honestly, I think that's actually the top reason why, because I've talked to many, we've helped people. I mean, I would say this, of the people who call us to renounce, say, hey, yeah, I want to renounce my citizenship. Okay. I'm like, okay, let's start the plan. Let's start the process. I would say, I don't know, it seems like only 30%, 20% go through with it. Most of them.
I believe that.
One, as soon as we get to it, it's like, okay, here it is. It's real. Here's the numbers. This is what it's going to be. Go do it. It's just like,
let me give you another example of how negatively this affects me personally. If I were to renounce my American citizenship and if I were to visit the States, that means I have to leave after 3 months because I would be there on, I have and I don't want to put her business out there, but my mother is very ill. She's in hospice care and I am her primary contact with power of attorney, living way over here in Norway. Now, what if things got so bad that I needed to actually be there and go and stay physically with my mother after I would have renounced citizenship?
That's the problem.
How does that work? I'll tell you, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, and so this is the punitive aspect of the current situation when it comes to the IRS and the tax code for Americans who live overseas. Yeah. This is how it hurts us. Now, I think everybody can identify with that. I'm just a regular guy. Well, I'm not regular. I squat 750.
Yeah, you're not a regular guy. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
But in all seriousness, we are, for the most part, we are just average people in the States. I have a sick mother. I know people watching this, listening to this, also have sick relatives. What if you could not care for them simply because you renounce that citizenship and you can't stay as long as you need to? Just think about that. Right. Forget about everything else. Just think of that.
Yeah. That was my situation. Keith, you're familiar with that. I mean,
absolutely. And you know what? At the end of the day, after my after my father passes, because my life is in France, I'm going to have to contemplate renouncing at that point, and I don't look forward to it. But that's why that's why I have my U.S. citizenship, because my mom was sick. So I get it, John.
There you go. There you go.
Great. Cindy has a bank. Thank you so much, Cindy. Spare Bank One. And you have to give her a copy of your passport. By the way, and Cindy also says this, which is interesting, and maybe this is what will ultimately do it for you, because apparently, I guess I don't know this, but Norway won't allow you to be a Norwegian citizen.
That's not true, Cindy. That's not true. That is not true. You can have dual citizenship as an American citizen.
All right. Well, Cindy follows up. She goes. She says, adopted son wasn't allowed to be a dual citizen. He would have to give up his Norwegian citizen. Huh.
Well, that's a little bit different because he was adopted. Depending on what country he originated from, I don't know if he was adopted as an American citizen already. But Cindy, if I were you, I would double check that, because I want to say it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago that Norway opened up for dual citizenship. There are go to the Americans in Norway group, Cindy. It's called Americans in Norway on Facebook. There are Americans left and right who are doing backflips and celebrating because they're getting dual citizenship. This is happening among Americans in Norway left and right. I want to say 5 or 6 years ago is when it opened up for dual citizenship here.
All right. Well,
so double check that and see if your adopted son. I don't know.
Hold on. Wait. She says it's the U.S. that doesn't allow it.
No, that's. I would double check on that.
False.
It's not. It is not an issue.
That is unequivocally false. The U.S. does allow it.
Yes, the U.S. does.
For a fact.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, all right. Well, hopefully we'll figure that out, Cindy. All right. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing the information. And I do want to get to this too, because I see this comment, same problem. I'm a dual citizen, Saudi and U.S. by birth. Yeah. Well, you are, my friend, T-Mac there. You are my friend. You are one of the luckiest individuals on the planet. You have a lovely status. I wish I was a dual citizen by birth, because if I was, I am not subject to the exit tax. I could be as rich and fabulous as I want and renounce my U.S. citizenship and say, no, thanks. No, that exit tax, no, thanks. Yeah, that's the thing. So it's terrible that you're, U.S., that they're subject to it. But, and I'm not sure, and this is the problem, right? It's like, what do you have back in the U.S.? Family, identity. Those are the things that make it hard. But look into that, and that's something that we've covered a lot. That dual citizenship by birth is one of the best statuses to have, far better than just being an American, right? Yeah, go ahead, John.
Anthony. I wanted to plug something else in here about the punitive aspect of all of this, a way that we get hurt. And this is speaking for the Americans in Norway, whom I know. There are not a lot, but there are some people who are fully knowledgeable of the tax code and how it's confusing for those of us who live overseas, specifically those of us here in Norway. There's some people who are fully aware of that. Maybe they have a background as a CPA in the States or something, and they put their vulture wings on and go predator. And they will prey on these Americans in Norway who don't understand things. Yeah. They will play on fear. Yeah. They will take elements of the misinformation, disinformation that's out there, and say things like, "Hey, you better comply, and you better do it quick. Give me $500, and I can fix this for you."
Yeah, I deal with that all the time with the people I speak with. The fear.
Yeah, Keith. Yeah.
Mongering.
Yeah,
all the time.
So I just want to say, if you don't know it already, Keith Redmond is the guy to talk with. Get that consultation with Keith Redmond. Talk to him, let him guide you, at least in the beginning phase, before you do something that can be both expensive and also costly in the way you live your life because you make a mistake. There are people who are predators out there, and they find people like us who are confused. By us, I mean people who live overseas. I can only speak for the ones here in Norway. I know this has happened to people here, but they go predator and they start squeezing people for money, knowing full and well that they're playing on their fear.
And that is, and the work they do is utterly atrocious. And it's
Yeah.
and it's actually one of the things that drives me, that gets me upset. It gets me upset that my content doesn't rank as high as it should, because I do want to get people to Keith. Look, I talk to people all the time, who have terrible representation. And it's, I don't know, it's better if someone else who isn't the person who has the alternative for him can give them the objective thing, because, hey, look, I take on clients. And so who's telling you the truth? Everyone wants your money here, right? Who's telling you the truth, me or this other guy, right? So that's why I say, you know what, go to Keith. He's not a tax professional. He just wants to help people, and he has his finger on the pulse. So thank you for this, for plugging Keith on this, because the work that he does is essential, and he saves lives. I am telling you, he just pulled another one out of the fire, and I'm so glad he did, because this would have been a disaster that would have destroyed a family. Keith, that the one you just sent over to me, thank you so much for your work.
And that's the thing. There are times, and that's what I do, is I have people explore all their options. And there are situations where I do refer somebody to you, Anthony, or I refer somebody to John Richardson as well, because
and it's not
it
everybody,
just depends,
right?
It just depends on the situation.
And then, and that's right, because people ask me, it's like, Anthony, what's this issue? Do they need, are they going to need an attorney? I'm like, no, their issue is pretty simple. It's just this. So if they want to do that themselves, they can do it themselves. They really don't need to hire me. I don't want to,
Yeah. And isn't that something that it doesn't have to be a complicated process? A lot of the times, and I think Keith is very good at saying this, a lot of the times people just need to stop, take a deep breath and think.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily need an attorney to do that. Sometimes you need this wonderful man, Keith Redmond, to just remind you of that. And that will solve your problem if you can just stop, think, and then make the proper decision.
And what I always say, keep the American culture of fear at bay.
Oh God, yeah, and and look, the tax industry is jacked up. It's jacked up with fear and misinformation. It's really wonderful. It's like, wow, you're scaremongering with things that aren't even true.
And it's misinformation. I've used that word misinformation probably at least half a dozen times in this podcast.
Yes,
because that is a huge part of all of this. Misinformation.
And and I would say it's so easy for the tax industry to put out the misinformation, because the IRS won't be clear. They won't be clear. And they leave open these holes like, well, no, you got to kind of know the whole story. Like, no, this is really for this, and this applies in this situation. No, I know it says that, but that's not how it's, so that's so much of the things that we have to deal with. So I really appreciate it. By the way, you reach Keith, you email him, US_overseas_advocate@outlook.com. Just so helpful to do. And I know we're coming up on time, and this has been wonderful, John Allen. And I do, John Richardson has been listening in. He's been, listening to this and chiming in where he can. He's traveling right now, but we also want to know he's really a backbone to so many of our episodes with his really in-depth analysis. And so what I would suggest to people, and really, if anyone watching this, and if you could post this, on the Norwegian group, anyone watching this if you could please share this on the groups. I'm not belonging to too many. I belong to Keith's group on Facebook, but I probably wouldn't be able to keep track of all the various groups. It might look like I'm spamming. So if you could share, if you could share this on this, because I think it'd be really helpful. But so what I'm saying is that if you use something, expatriation is what you're looking for, you can reach out to John Richardson and take a look. Really, the key is to take a look at some of our other episodes. I mean, John really understands this, these presentations. If you want to blow away, and this is what I would say, if you want to blow away that fear and ignorance that is pumped out at you all the time, you call someone, you're going to have criminal charges. If you want to have a blowtorch to that fear and anxiety, this is what people tell me. They just start binge watching our channel. And I think that the dulcet tones of John Richardson and going through the what the law truly is will give you that power. Oh my God, well, you know this stuff better than the attorney you're talking to. You will know it better than them, and that will give you the power, because when they're telling you nonsense, you're like, wait, I know that one. You can point to the video right here at this timestamp to explain this one. So John has been really such a great friend to me, to everybody, to the community. So it is something you're renouncing. Watch his channel, watch his stuff, and then you'll see why maybe you want to choose him if you're renouncing. And you could reach him at citizensolutions@protonmail.com. Now, I didn't get your podcast up because I want people to know where to find you. So let me get a screen. Let me share a screenshot of your screen share your podcast. Here it is. Here it is. Oh, look at that. Expats are treated unfairly. That
Wow.
sounds like a good episode.
Wow, right to the point.
Wow, we're gonna get right to it. Wow, I wonder who's on
poking
that.
the tiger.
Okay. Oh,
I'm
there he
poking
is.
the
Look
tiger.
at that guy.
Same
Pretty good.
T-shirt. Same T-shirt.
It's the same day. We recorded the same day. There it is. Oh my goodness. Look at this. Oh wow. Oh, you got the Anthony Parent. Keith Redmond. Oh my God. Wow, you got all the heavy hitters on this.
Hey.
You got to check it out here. So yeah, go check out.
I know some important people.
You know some important people, absolutely.
But that is that's right on my website. If you go to johnallenpod.com, JOHNALANPOD.com. And as you see on the top there, you can watch it on YouTube. I put all our pretty faces on video. Or if you just want to listen, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere. Coming Home with John Allen is the name of my show.
Let me get that up there. Here we go. There's a link to it. You can find John Allen here. We have quite a bit in common, and I think I gotta mention this. I just gotta mention this because if you're a fan of the channel, you probably know a little bit about my hijinks. We've been talking about creating a band. John Keith and I, Keith on piano, John on drums, and I do guitar and vocal. You're a guitar as well. I don't know when that's going to happen. We got to get together for that. But what I did do is, and I'm going to promote this event. I am actually going to do it. I got an event coming up, Wallingford Porch Fest. So for those of you who happen to be in the Wallingford, Connecticut area this weekend, I will be playing. My band, Trail Boss, will be playing. It's like an early Who sound is what I would say. I have nothing recorded yet. I'm trying to get a studio there to come record this. But if you're around for that, I am playing that, and the reason why I'm bringing it up, John Allen, is because like you, I play guitar, sing a lot. That's what I love doing. It gives me, that's where I find my enjoyment, my true life. It's and this is what I think about. It's like it's a simple thing. What does playing your guitar cost you, right? It's like, okay, after the guitar is bought, it's like, okay, you have sort of strings you have to replace, but it's pretty much close to free.
Yeah.
And the amount of joy and fun you can have with it is really the best. It's like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to play music. And so I've been playing for a while, and I wrote a song that this song I wrote, and I don't have it, but this is really the point I want to leave everyone with. I wrote this song years ago, called Army Style. And I played it, and I didn't even have it, and it got a huge reaction. People loved it. And I explained the story of how I wrote the song. And I had a girlfriend in Brattleboro, Vermont. And, we don't watch TV. So like, what do you do? Like, we came up with a game. We just grabbed a book of slang and we tried to guess the definition of what it was. Now, these words were not nice, and I'm not going to repeat the one that I want. Now, she said a definition to me, and like, you say the word, try to guess the definition. She said it, and I guessed it right. And I'm like, I'm not going to say what it is because it'll just only indict my character. But so then it was my turn to go, and I said this word. I'm like, oh, you're never going to get this, or if you do, I'm leaving right now. I am out that door. So I said Army Style. Guess the definition of this word, Army Style, and it goes like this. It's like this, and I'm like, whoa! This made it into a book. So this thing's so common. I mean, a word I never heard it before, but it's this. It's that. Let's say, and this will get a little dark, and I'll speak in euphemism a little bit. But let's just say you're a guy, and you do a favor for another guy, and let's say that instead of getting roses or handshake or gift card to Applebee's or whatever, you get the living snot beat out of you. Okay, so that is such a common thing. It's got a name, Army Style. Now, my brother was in the Army. My dad was in the Army. I am not in the Army. And the reason why is because I have a brother and father who are in the Army. He's like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And because this is the essence of the song, and this is the essence of being an American, that Army Style is basically being a U.S. citizen. When you do a favor, when you sacrifice the most for America, when you are that one who goes above and beyond, you are going to be punished the most. And that is Army Style, my friends. And so
Army Style,
that is what it is. And so maybe we could do that duet. I could send you over the lyrics. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you this. I would love to work with you guys. I'm a working musician. I have my studio here. I do production work. I do a lot
Good
of
for you.
songwriting. I'm sorry, say again?
I just said good for you.
If you really
Oh,
Excellent.
and I really enjoy it. So music is a big part of what I do. So if you guys need a overseas collaborator, it's easy with file sharing and
Yeah.
all this stuff now. So you guys need to do some kind of collaboration, or you want any kind of help, hey, give me a holler.
All right. I might send you over the song. So, all right.
You can see on my website, by the way, my music is on my website. Just
Right.
click on the Spotify
That's right. And I've listened
icon.
to it. And I think,
have
I
you?
think,
Okay.
I think it might go, quite well. So with that, all right. Well, there it is. There it is. Right
There it
on.
is.
All right,
There it
great.
is.
Well, thanks everyone. I love seeing the new viewers today. Thank you so much. I hope many of you subscribe, turn on those notifications so you know when we go live. Great to see such a new audience. And yet, right here we go. Final plug for Keith here. Thanks, Jack. All right, and I've learned so much from us guys too. In there, thanks so much. And this is really what we want people to do, is just really share the content, so that people become more informed and really stop that fear. We all kind of see what's going on. So with that, and by the way, let me just give myself a plug. I am at the Bowen Partners. And by the way, if you are looking to an offshore disclosure, or maybe just even your U.S. tax prep, you can hire a firm that sees the U.S. tax code exactly for what it is, or you can hire someone else. You can go to IRSMedic.com offshore if you're trying to do a streamlined disclosure, or we're still having people a little late on their tax filings that we're picking up. So if you want to do that, just go there, book a time to speak with us, and we can help you out, as we are truly on your side against the evil, and I'm just going to say it, the evil empire. It is. And if it's making you consider giving up your citizenship, it can be nothing other than evil. With that, this is Anthony Parent for John Allen, John Richardson, Keith Redmond. Thanks for watching.